All right, guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man Jay. Today we're going to be talking Galaxy S25, not the Ultra series, but I am recording with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra just for reference. So I've been watching some content. Now, this is the S25 Plus, and this is that middle ground that Samsung offers. So, but the S25, the smallest variant of this device, I think it's starting to get a little bit of shine. But when it comes to calling it a powerhouse, because I've been hearing this, and for me, the S25 just lacks probably one area to where or maybe one or two areas. So I think I can't call it a powerhouse, but that's just, subjective. That's my perspective on it when comparing it next to other devices that I would consider a small powerhouse. Just the terminology alone, powerhouse, can describe a lot of things. So, and this video is not to put down the Galaxy S25. I'm intrigued by it, really. Here's why. This is the S25 Plus. Now, I consider this to be a powerhouse for a few reasons. Now, off camera, I have the specs of both this phone from Samsung's website and the S25, the smaller variant. Now, the S25 has the same camera setup as this phone. On the rear, you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide, you have a 50 megapixel wide angle main lens, and you have a 10 megapixel telephoto lens. On the front, they both have a 12 megapixel front facing camera right here, which means they should in theory perform the same. Now, one major difference is going to be the battery size, but is it really an issue? Let's talk. Battery is 4,900 milliamps in this phone, and Samsung claims 30 hours of video playback. In the Galaxy S25, it has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. That's 900 milliamps less, but it still claims up to 29 hours of video playback. So, okay, battery shouldn't be an issue. You still have the same Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. You have this. Now, here's where the smaller variants always win with me, and it is the weight. Now, this phone right here is 190 grams, but folks, it is thin and lightweight. Coming from the previous generation, you might think, wow, this feels much, it's like it's almost not there. It's almost too thin and too light for the size of the screen, but that's subjective as well. Now, coming in at 162 grams versus this 190 grams, it's going to be a lot different. Now, thinking of terms powerhouse, I've been seeing this float around for people who have the smaller variant, and they're calling it a powerhouse. And again, totally subjective. And I think I've come down to just two things, like I said, that make it probably not a powerhouse, but I'd have to buy it. And I'm probably going to eat my words when I buy it. But the 6.7 inch display on this one, yeah, it's very nice, and it's Quad HD. It is Quad HD. But the Galaxy S25 has a 6.2 inch display, and they have it labeled as Quad HD Plus, basically a 1080p display that's really good. It's the 120 hertz super AMOLED dynamic 100 times 2 times, all of that. These are the same. This just has a Quad HD display. And it's weird because some places have it listed, the S25 is Quad spelled out, an HD Plus display. Basically a 1080p display with a very good resolution to match. But they also still have the 2600 nits of brightness in the peak form. So it's a matter of, is it really a powerhouse? Probably yes. But my differences are more along the lines of it not having a Quad HD display, and then the battery, while they're saying it's going to perform the same, yeah, it probably won't. You're probably going to get a different, you might get better battery, who knows, because this is 3120 by 1440, and then the Galaxy S25 is 2340 by 1080. So you should, but I can adjust this down if I go into settings, and I try to always keep these at the highest because I want to see what the battery is going to do when it comes to screen. Here we go. I always keep it on the highest one because this is what I paid for. I paid for a Quad HD display. I'm going to keep it on Quad HD, 1440. So with the Galaxy S25 coming in at 1080p, I'm pretty sure you can probably bump it down to 720p. I can bump this all the way down to 720p. You know, I guess I will only do that if I'm just trying to save a little battery. But in my testing, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to save that much battery. You'll see a drastic drop between 720 and Quad HD. But from 1080p, I didn't notice really any difference. And they both can do from adaptive refresh rates from 1 to 120. But a real kicker is that in the US market, you cannot get the 512 gig version from what I see on the website. And I'll confirm that again. You only get 128 and 256. But with this device, you get 256 and 512. Now on the website, it's listed at 128, 256 and 512 for the Galaxy S25, the smaller variant. Yeah, I'll double check to make sure. But with that said, they both have 12 gigs of RAM. They both have pretty much all the same ARM aluminum frame, Gorilla Glass Victus 2. They're the same. They're the same. My differentiators are the storage. You can't be a powerhouse phone if you can't at least get a 512. You don't have a Quad HD display, and the battery is still 4,000 milliamps. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'll probably eat my words when I buy this phone. I'll probably eat it. And if you're coming from the S24, I think the differences might seem a little better because you're getting better hardware for sure. And it's thinner, you know what I mean? So the performance is going to probably be better. But you do have the same camera setup, folks. Yeah. And they're only increasing the battery by, just 1 hour of additional playback. And you're getting a more lightweight phone in comparison to the older generation, the 24 lineup. So I think the S25 probably could be a powerhouse. I'm going to go up here and hit buy off screen here and just see if I am doing something wrong here. I want to see if you can actually get, no, you can't get a 512 gig. So the 512 gig is limited to the European market, which I think is kind of sad because who wants to pay $800 for 128 gigs of storage on a Samsung when you've taken away the SD card? So before the iPhone conversation comes into play, Samsung offered SD cards at one point. Apple has never done that. The SD card slot. Yeah. So if you're going to offer a 128 gig version of a phone, you definitely should offer an SD card. You should allow it to have a high-speed SD card option on the 128 gig versions. And I don't think a lot of people would buy it just because it has an SD card slot, or maybe they would. I don't know. But you can get the 256 gig right now. You hit the link in the description, you get the 256 gig for the same price as the 128 gig, or just a little bit more, I believe. I think it's about $10 more, and you get double the storage. So why wouldn't you do that? Yeah, you should. So the conversation about the Galaxy S25 being a powerhouse, okay, I could agree to a certain extent because this device, I consider it to be a powerhouse, but it obviously has a much larger footprint. So, with that said, I think the entire lineup from Samsung this year is a slight improvement, man. It's good enough if you're moving from one of the older generations, but not the 24, in my opinion. So with all that, did we call the Galaxy S24 a powerhouse? I didn't. But the Galaxy S24 Plus and the Ultra, definitely those are powerhouses. But I think this year, I'm really intrigued by the Galaxy S25, just surely based on the size. But, I'd hate to get it and be plagued by that poor battery life that I had years ago with the smaller variants, because the smaller variants had very poor battery life. And I just don't know. So shout out to my man, Pristine Tech. He has the Galaxy S25, that smaller variant, and he speaks highly of it. So, and I've also seen some of you guys in my comment section saying, hey, I'm rocking the S25 and I'm loving its powerhouse. And I'm like, wow, is it a powerhouse? So if I just take the specs away and just use the devices, if they all had 1080p displays, would my conversation be different? because I can adjust these phones, like I said, to 1080p displays. My Ultra that I'm recording with, and this device right here can go to a 1080p display. And yeah, I think I probably would somewhat agree that it is. I've pointed out the two things that I think make it not a powerhouse in my opinion. But I say that also because small powerhouse phones, I think, are phones like this. This is my Pixel 9 Pro, and this is my iPhone 16 Pro. These are small powerhouse phones. These phones right here, I think, are definitely powerhouse phones. I'm trying to get it out the light there. These are powerhouse phones. These two small phones right here are definitely powerhouse phones. They are identical to their larger family member. The ones that you make a powerhouse, a small powerhouse phone for people who don't want a larger device. And when you look at the size comparison on here, this is a 6.7 versus 6.3, obviously. And this also is a 6.3. And even Apple was able to get a bigger display, the same size display in a small body. This is a 6.3 inch display as well, but it's smaller than Google's 6.3 inch. As far as the footprint goes, look at there's a difference. These are both 6.3 inch displays, and they both are different sizes. It's all about the footprint. So, I consider these to be powerhouse phones because they are identical to the bigger version of themselves. Samsung, not so much. Samsung has chosen to drop the display resolution and drop some of the functionality and features on the lesser version. Like the hardware is different as well from like the Ultra, but the hardware is the same on this phone, the S25 Plus, as the Galaxy S25. But, I really hope that one day Samsung does go ahead and put that 5,000 milliamp hour battery or 4,800 milliamp hour battery in the Galaxy S25 and give it that Quad HD display that it deserves. It deserves to have a Quad HD display. It's a member of their money makers. And there also are more people out there that think these phones are still too big. And there's a lot of people out there that feel like the 6.2 inch display is too big. So just bear that in mind when you're talking about how great the Ultra is and how you think this phone is perfect. There are people out there with very small hands or people out there with big hands like me who still enjoy a smaller device. Simply put, that is the gist of it. What do you think about Samsung's Galaxy S25? Is it a powerhouse because it's spec'd exactly like this, minus one or two things? I say it could be labeled as a powerhouse because that's all in the person holding the phone and what you've used in the past. But seeing as though I have these other Samsung phones and they have Quad HD displays, big batteries, and they get all the bells and whistles, so to speak, why haven't they done that with the smaller variant? I think when you're copying someone, you should copy them in some areas, and they're not doing that per se. So it's your man Jay. Hope you guys enjoyed. I've been enjoying the Galaxy S25 Plus. I knew I would. And the Ultra has proven to have some phenomenal speakers. I'm thinking about doing a speaker test with the Galaxy S25 Ultra. And this phone has great speakers too, but I've noticed depending on what I'm listening to, what bitrate it was recorded at, the speakers on the Galaxy S25 are just flat out phenomenal. Straight up. They are very loud, very clear, have good tones to them. And they're just really, really good. So I hope you enjoyed the content. It's your man Jay, and we'll talk later. I got a follow-up coming on more Samsung stuff.